Why do they hate me so much? What did I ever do to deserve this? Every day I heal their pain, but every day they give me more pain.
Get out. We don't want your care. Find her. She is the reason bad things keep happening to our village.
No ordinary person can sing and heal sickness. There is something evil about that girl.
If helping people is evil, then why did God give me this voice? Please help me, somebody help me. Who is there? Help me. I'm here, you're safe. No, you are not going to die tonight. Everybody left me, they said I was going to die. What is happening? I can breathe again. Shh, rest now, you are safe.
So it's true. Her voice really has power. And if the prince discovers this before I do, everything will change. That voice. I heard that voice again. Who is the woman singing in my dreams?
What would you do if you had the power to heal the world, but every miracle cost you a piece of your own life? Was Adaeze truly alive, or had she become the spirit of the sacred song? Do you believe true love can last forever? Stay with us as we unfold the truth of this story. And please subscribe. This means a lot to us. Let's dive in. In a small village hidden deep within the ancient lands of the Igbo people, there lived a young woman named Adaeze. She was beautiful, she was kind, but the people of her village feared her. Whenever Adaeze sang, strange things happened. Dry crops suddenly became green, sick people stood up and walked again, crying children stopped crying and smiled. No one could explain her gift, and because they did not understand it, they called it evil. Every day, the villagers pointed their fingers at her. They whispered behind her back. They called her a witch. They blamed her for every bad thing that happened. Little by little, Adaeze's heart began to break. But every night, after everyone had gone to sleep, Adaeze walked alone into the lonely bush. There, beneath the moonlight, and far away from the cruel voices of the village, she cried and she sang, not for power, not for praise, but to heal the pain hidden inside her own heart. On one unforgettable night, Adaeze sang more beautifully than ever before. Her voice floated through the trees, it crossed rivers, it traveled beyond mountains, and somewhere far away, someone heard her. In a distant kingdom lived Prince Obinna. For many years, the prince had been unable to walk. The greatest healers had failed, the strongest medicines had failed, and hope itself had almost disappeared. But that night, as the prince listened to the mysterious voice singing in the darkness, something impossible happened. He felt warmth spreading through his body. He felt strength returning to his legs, slowly, very slowly. For the first time in many years, his legs moved. The girl everyone hated had no idea that her voice had just changed the fate of a prince, and this was only the beginning, because soon the entire world would learn the truth about Adaeze. After the miracle that changed his life forever, Prince Obinna could no longer forget the mysterious voice he had heard in the night. Again and again, he returned to the lonely bush, searching for the girl whose song had awakened hope inside him. And there, beneath the moonlight, he found Adaeze. At first, they spoke like strangers, then they spoke like friends, and with every night they spent together, a secret bond began to grow between them. Each time Adaeze sang, something extraordinary happened. The prince's legs became stronger. His pain slowly disappeared. For the first time in many years, Prince Obinna dared to believe that he might walk again. But while hope was growing between them, fear was spreading across the land. Miracles were happening everywhere. Children who had been sick suddenly became healthy. The weak became strong. The hopeless found hope again. Soon, a deadly sickness began to spread through nearby villages. The same people who had once insulted Adaeze now came running to her for help. During the day, they begged for her healing. At night, they still called her a witch. Adaeze carried their pain in silence, but she was no longer alone. As Prince Obinna spent more time with Adaeze, friendship slowly became something deeper, something neither of them could explain, something both of them feared. Yet, hidden in the shadows, someone else was watching. Dyke. Every meeting, every conversation, every song, he watched them all, and the jealousy growing inside his heart became more dangerous with each passing day. Then, one night, Mama Urena revealed a secret that had been buried for generations. An ancient prophecy, a prophecy about a young woman whose voice could heal the sick, change the fate of kingdoms, and awaken powers forgotten by time. At that same moment, far away inside the royal palace, Queen Ejimnaka discovered that her son had been hiding something from her, and what she learned filled her heart with fear. She gave a terrible order: find the girl, capture Adaeze before it is too late. But before the royal guards could reach her, the impossible happened. As thunder shook the heavens and a violent storm covered the land, Adaeze lifted her voice and began to sing. The winds became silent, the thunder stopped, and before the eyes of everyone watching, the rain itself froze in the sky. For the first time, the kingdom realized the truth. Adaeze was not ordinary, and the real danger had only just begun. Long before Adaeze was born, a terrible secret was buried beneath the glory of the royal kingdom. It was a secret so dangerous that no one dared to speak of it. Many years ago, King Ezudo, in his hunger for power and expansion, ordered the destruction of a sacred forest, but that forest was not ordinary. It was the home of ancient spiritual maidens who had protected the land for generations. Their songs healed the sick, their prayers protected kingdoms, and when their sacred home was destroyed, they placed a terrible curse upon the royal bloodline, a curse that would be carried from one generation to another, a curse that would one day cripple the kingdom's only prince. For many years, no one knew the truth, but now the truth had begun to awaken. As Prince Obina continued to listen to Adaeze's sacred voice, the impossible happened. One morning, without support and without fear, he stood up. Then he took one step, then another, and for the first time in his life, Prince Obina walked alone. While the kingdom celebrated the miracle, King Ezudo could no longer hide the truth. With shame and regret filling his heart, he confessed the terrible sin that had haunted his family for decades. And with that confession came another shocking discovery. Adaeze was not an ordinary village girl. She was connected to the ancient spiritual bloodline that had once protected the sacred forest. She carried the very power that could break the royal curse forever, but that same power could also become greater than the throne itself. When Queen Ejimnaka learned the truth, fear consumed her heart. To protect the kingdom and to protect the throne, she began to see Adaeze not as a savior, but as a threat. Meanwhile, the entire land had begun to change. Some villagers secretly worshipped Adaeze as a divine healer. Others believed she was a dangerous spirit who must be destroyed. Fear spread through every village. Hatred grew stronger, and darkness slowly gathered around Adaeze. Then another tragedy struck. Adaeze discovered a secret that shattered her heart. Her mother had not died naturally. She had been murdered, and the people responsible had hidden the truth for many years. At the same time, jealousy and bitterness finally consumed Dike. Blinded by anger and obsession, he joined forces with those who wanted Adaeze dead. Soon afterward, Adaeze's closest friend, Neka, disappeared without a trace. She had been kidnapped. As Adaeze searched desperately for her friend, something ancient awakened inside the lonely bush. For the first time in generations, mysterious spirits appeared beneath the moonlight. They came with a warning: a great battle was coming, and not everyone would survive. But before Adaeze could understand what the spirits meant, the greatest betrayal of all unfolded inside the royal palace. Terrified of losing her son, her kingdom, and her power, Queen Ejimnaka made a decision that would change everything forever. She gave a single order, an order that would shake the entire kingdom: capture Adaeze and execute her immediately. And the real danger had only just begun. The order had been given. Adaeze was to be captured and executed. However, destiny had other plans. On the very night she was meant to die, something extraordinary happened. The winds rose, the skies darkened, and before the royal guards could carry out the queen's command, Adaeze escaped. Her disappearance sent fear and confusion throughout the kingdom. The village that had once been united in its hatred of her became deeply divided. Some believed Adaeze was a blessing sent to save them, while others feared she was a dangerous force destined to destroy them all. Families argued, friends became enemies, and the village that had once feared Adaeze now began to fear itself. Among all those consumed by fear, none was more dangerous than Dike. For years, jealousy had poisoned his heart, and now he saw his opportunity. He traveled to Prince Obina and filled his mind with lies, claiming that Adaeze had used dark magic, that the prince's healing had never been real, and that she had manipulated both his heart and body. At first, Prince Obina refused to believe these accusations, but doubt is a powerful enemy, and slowly, fear found its way into his heart. When Adaeze discovered that the prince no longer trusted her, her world shattered. The man she had healed, The man she had trusted and the man she had begun to love now feared her as well. Heartbroken and alone, she disappeared into the forbidden forest, far away from the kingdom and the people who had brought her nothing but pain. However, the moment her days vanished, disaster returned. The sickness came back, and this time it was worse than anyone had imagined. Villages fell silent, families lost hope, and children began to die. As fear spread across the land, anger erupted into violence. Neighbors fought neighbors, friends turned against friends, and the kingdom slowly began to tear itself apart. Eventually, the truth began to emerge. Nika, risking her own life, exposed Dyke's lies. She revealed his jealousy, his obsession, and his betrayal, but by then, the damage had already been done. At the same time, another tragedy struck the royal palace. Queen Ejimnaka fell dangerously ill. No healer could save her, and no medicine could help her. For the first time in her life, the queen was forced to confront the possibility that Adais had never been the enemy. Deep within the forbidden forest, Adais faced a different battle. Guided by ancient spirits and forgotten voices, she began learning sacred songs far more powerful than anything she had ever known. Songs capable of healing, songs capable of destruction, and songs capable of changing the fate of entire kingdoms. Yet she was not alone. Hidden within the shadows of the forest, a mysterious masked man had been watching her every move. He knew who she was, he knew what she could become, and he had been waiting for her all along. Meanwhile, back in the kingdom, Prince Obina finally realized the terrible mistake he had made. Desperate to find Adais, he searched for her tirelessly, calling her name and begging for forgiveness. But destiny still had one final cruel surprise awaiting him. Without warning, the strength left his body, the pain returned, and his legs gave way beneath him. And for the second time in his life, Prince Obina collapsed, unable to walk. The kingdom had already suffered loss, betrayal, and fear, but its darkest chapter was only beginning. After Prince Obina lost the ability to walk once again, enemies who had long remained hidden in the shadows finally made their move. In the middle of the night, while the kingdom slept, the royal palace came under attack. The sound of drums echoed through the darkness. Flames rose into the sky. Warriors fought fiercely, and the screams of the people filled the air. Amid the chaos and destruction, Prince Obina disappeared. When the sun finally rose, the kingdom lay in ruins. The royal guard searched the forests, the rivers, and the mountains, but they found nothing. No prince, no body, and no answers. Soon, a terrible truth spread throughout the land. Prince Obina was dead. The kingdom mourned, the queen wept, and for Adais, the world itself seemed to stop. She grieved the man she had healed, the man she had loved, and the man she believed she had lost. Yet deep within her heart, Adais refused to accept that he was truly gone. While others abandoned hope, she held tightly to hers. Determined to find him, Adais embarked on a journey that no one else dared to undertake. She searched through forests, crossed dangerous rivers, climbed mountains hidden by clouds, and traveled through lands from which many never returned. Day after day, and night after night, she searched tirelessly for the man she loved. Unknown to everyone, Prince Obina was still alive, wounded, alone, and hidden far from the kingdom that believed him dead. He struggled each day to survive, and with every passing day, he prayed that Adais had not forgotten him. While Adais searched for the lost prince, another danger was steadily rising. A neighboring kingdom had been watching the weakness, the chaos, and the suffering that had consumed the land, and now they were preparing for war. Weapons were forged, armies gathered, and whispers of invasion spread throughout the kingdom. Soon, Adais found herself facing an impossible choice. Should she continue searching for the man she loved, or should she return to save the kingdom that had once hated her? It was a choice no heart should ever have to make. As the world around her grew darker, Adais' gift became stronger than ever before. Her songs healed the sick, restored the wounded, and brought entire villages back from despair. Hundreds of people who had lost hope found life again through the power of her voice. However, every miracle came at a terrible price. Each time Adesi sang, she grew weaker. Her strength faded, her body suffered, and a secret pain slowly began to grow within her. Meanwhile, tragedy struck once again in the kingdom. Mama Urena, the woman who had protected ancient secrets for many years, sensed that her time had come. Before taking her final breath, she delivered one final warning. The greatest sacrifice has not yet been made. Then she closed her eyes forever. Her death shook the entire kingdom, At the same time, Dyke was finally forced to confront the truth about himself. He saw the destruction his jealousy had caused, the pain he had created, and for the first time in his life, genuine regret filled his heart. Yet some mistakes leave scars that can never fully heal. Inside the royal palace, Queen Ejimnaka was no longer the proud ruler she had once been. Fear, loss, and guilt had broken her spirit. At last, she accepted what she had long refused to believe. Adaeze had never been her enemy. In an act no one could have imagined, the queen knelt before Adaeze and begged for her forgiveness. But destiny had not yet finished testing Adaeze. As war approached and hope continued to fade, she sang once more. She sang to save the sick, she sang to save the dying, and she sang to save the kingdom itself. When the song finally ended, the people celebrated what they believed was yet another miracle. But Adaeze did not smile. She did not speak. Slowly she lowered her head. Then, before the eyes of everyone watching, she coughed, and blood fell to the ground. For the first time, the kingdom realized a terrifying truth. Every miracle Adaeze performed was slowly killing her. War had finally arrived. For years, the kingdom had been haunted by fear, divided by hatred, and poisoned by secrets. Now, all of those wounds had opened at once. Enemy armies marched across the land. Villages burned. Families fled their homes, and the sound of war drums echoed through the mountains. For the first time in generations, the kingdom stood on the edge of destruction. Yet as darkness spread across the land, the people finally began to understand the truth they had ignored for so long. Adaeze had never been the enemy. She had never been a cause, nor had she ever been a witch. She had been their protector all along. The god they had once hated was now the only one capable of saving them. As the kingdom prepared for its final battle, hope arrived from a place no one expected. Prince Obinna had returned. The prince everyone believed was lost, the man everyone believed was dead, had survived. Through pain, sacrifice, and destiny, he had returned stronger than ever before. For the first time in his life, Prince Obinna stood without pain and walked without fear. When the people saw him standing beside Adaeze once again, hope returned to the kingdom. Together, they traveled across villages, forests, and battlefields. Wherever Adaeze sang, wounded soldiers rose again, frightened children found courage, and divided people became united. For the first time in many years, the kingdom stood together as one. However, every miracle came with a price. Deep beneath the earth, something ancient had begun to awaken. The curse placed upon the royal bloodline generations earlier was breaking, and as it shattered, dark spiritual forces that had long remained dormant began to rise. The skies darkened, the rivers changed, the forests whispered, and the spirits of the ancient world returned. It was then that Adaeze discovered the truth that had been hidden from everyone. The sacred songs were never meant to heal forever. There existed one final song, a song powerful enough to destroy the curse, powerful enough to save the kingdom, and powerful enough to heal the world itself. Yet his final song carried a terrible price. The one who sang it would never return. For the first time since her journey had begun, Adaeze understood her true destiny. She could save everyone, but in doing so, she would lose herself forever. As enemy armies surrounded the kingdom, the final battle began. The earth shook, the sky burned, and warriors fought with everything they possessed. Amid the chaos, heroes were forced to make their final choices. Dyke, the man whose jealousy had caused so much suffering, finally chose redemption. To protect Adaeze and the kingdom, he sacrificed his own life. In his final moments, he asked for forgiveness, and for the first time, he found peace. Meanwhile, King Ezudo was forced to face the consequences of the sin that had begun everything. The curse he had created, the pain he had caused, and the kingdom he had nearly destroyed. Before the battle ended, the king drew his final breath. His death marked the end of an age and the beginning of another. With the kingdom collapsing around them, Prince Obinna was crowned king, not in celebration, not in peace, but in the midst of war. And with tears in his eyes, he watched the woman he loved walk alone toward her destiny. Adaeze entered the sacred cave, the place where the ancient songs were born and where the curse had first begun. The spirits gathered around her, the heavens fell silent, and then Adaeze began to sing. Her voice filled the earth. The mountains trembled, the rivers glowed, and the darkness itself began to break. Across the kingdom, people fell to their knees. The sick were healed, the wounded were restored, and the curse that had haunted generations began to disappear. As the final note echoed across the world, A great light covered the land. When the light finally faded, the war was over, the darkness was gone, the kingdom had been saved, but Adaise was nowhere to be found. She had disappeared, and no one knew if they would ever see her again. Many years had passed since the day the sacred song saved the kingdom. The war had ended, the curse had been broken, and at last peace had returned to the land. The villages that had once known fear were now filled with laughter. The fields had grown green again. Children played freely beneath the sun, and the people never forgot the young woman whose voice had saved them all. Yet even as the kingdom healed, one heart remained broken. King Obina, the prince who had become king, was the man who had gained the kingdom, but lost the woman he loved. For years, he searched for Adaise. He searched the forests where they had once walked together, the rivers where he had first heard her song, the mountains, the sacred caves, and the lonely bush where their story had begun. But despite his endless search, Adaise was nowhere to be found. As time passed, stories about her spread throughout the land. Some believed that Adaise had died on the day she sang the final song. Others believed she had become something greater, a spirit of healing, a guardian of the land, a voice carried by the wind itself. And so the years continued to pass. Kingdoms rose and changed, children grew into adults, and still King Obina never stopped waiting. Then one day, something impossible happened. A sick child in a distant village suddenly recovered without medicine. The next morning, flowers bloomed overnight in places where nothing had grown for years. Soon, more stories began to spread. People whispered that they had heard singing in the darkness, soft, beautiful singing, coming from the lonely bush, the very place where Adaise had once cried alone beneath the moonlight. At first, King Obina refused to believe the stories. He had spent too many years hoping, too many years grieving, and too many years searching. But as he heard the same stories repeated again and again, something deep within his heart awakened once more. Hope. For one final time, the king returned to the place where everything had begun. The lonely bush had not changed. The trees still whispered, the river still flowed, and the moon still shone through the leaves. Then he heard it, a voice, soft, gentle, beautiful. It was the same voice he had heard all those years ago, the same voice that had healed his body and captured his heart. With tears filling his eyes, King Obina followed the sound, step by step and breath by breath, until he finally reached the clearing. And there, standing beneath the moonlight, was Adaise. She was exactly as he remembered her, young, beautiful, and peaceful. Her light brown skin glowed beneath the moonlight. Her long black hair was tied back just as before, and on her face rested the same smile he had carried in his heart for all those years. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The world itself seemed to stop. The years of pain, the years of searching, and the years of waiting all disappeared. Only love remained. Tears streamed down King Obina's face as he took a step toward her. He wanted to ask where she had been. He wanted to ask whether she was real. He wanted to ask whether he was dreaming. But before he could speak, Adaise smiled, and in the same gentle voice he had loved from the very beginning, she spoke. Love never dies, Obina. Then she began to sing. The trees swayed softly, the flowers bloomed around them, and the wind carried her voice across the kingdom one final time. As her song filled the night sky, the world faded into light, but her song, her love, and her story would live forever.
Thank you so much for watching. And please don't forget to subscribe to African Folktale by Zoya. Turn on the notification so when I post more interesting stories, you will be the first to get them. I really appreciate you. I do not take your support for granted. Bye for now.